agree with your points, not to mention the devastation to the U.S. healthcare system, especially in hotspots areas that have cost hospitals hundreds of millions of dollars, and focusing also on the response, healthcare workers' response, trying different treatments, how patients are doing, all of this being brought to the spotlight. And it isn't just the president talking. The task force includes people like Dr. Tony Fauci, who's been a top virologist in this country for many, many years, infectious disease, and Dr. Birx as well, and Dr. Redfield, who runs CDC. All of these people coming to the mic and informing the American public. Hugely important. The issue is, though, unfortunately, a lot of this information gets politicized, gets bandied about in the media like it's some kind of contact sport. That is so deeply disturbing. One mistake, and I'm not saying mistakes haven't been made, big ones have been made, obviously, but the idea people are waiting in the wings to take this information, attack the president or other people in the task force is not helping in the fight against this virus.
You know, Lara, early on, there was an argument that was made that the political reporters in the White House press corps should be replaced with healthcare reporters. That did not happen, and people argued that maybe we get more relevant information and questions because, as the doctor just pointed out, a lot of the questions that have been asked over the 50 briefings that we've had weren't always focused on the pandemic at hand.
Well, how about you just replace those reporters with ones who actually don't have such a hatred for the president and such a history and record of hostility in all of their interactions and their reporting. You're coming from publications whose reporting on this president and this administration is 99 or 100% negative 100% of the time. And that's the context in which these briefings are taking place. And if you look at what the president tweeted himself, he said, you know, why am I boosting their ratings with fake news when they're only hostile and not reporting the facts? Now, from the reporter's point of view, you know, obviously a lot of journalists and people would push back against that, especially ones who, and there is, of course, a need to be critical of the administration and the president and to examine these things in detail. But the realities here is that it's not happening without a history and a context. And, you know, nobody's fooled by that. I mean, just ask anyone out there, right? If they don't like Trump and they hate Trump, they're cheering the reporters. And if they're in the middle and they really want to know what's happening with this virus and they're open-minded or they support the president, then they're frustrated that these reporters are not giving him a chance to speak or that, I mean, still, if this president is someone who is unpredictable, he's been unpredictable from the start. So just because there's not one briefing or a week without briefings doesn't mean they won't resume again. No, but we don't know what's going to happen. Anytime I hear a reporter or a news organization putting people out there who are going to tell you what the president is thinking and doing, unless they got it from the president himself, I don't believe it because they've all been wrong almost all the time.
So, Melissa, you know, what do you think about the White House's reasoning here in that they want to spend time on other things? And it is true that while President Trump is he's very accessible, 3-hour briefings over the past 2 months, but that does leave a lot of room for making mistakes while you're receiving new information.
First of all, I can't believe he kept it up this long. I mean, this president, it shocks me every day the amount of energy and stamina he has. I don't think any of the rest of us can keep up with him, and I have no idea how he does it. We couldn't stand there for hours and hours every day. I know I couldn't. I think it had to end at some point, and it makes sense for it to have it now because we are seeing this disease. We're seeing the curve flatten. I mean, we're seeing the seriousness of this or maybe, you know, the new territory recedes. So now we know what we're dealing with. People have been inside. It feels like we are not out of the woods, and I don't mean to imply that in any way, but it does feel like we've turned a corner and we're getting closer to opening things back up all around the country. So it's a perfectly logical time. It did get to the point where reporters were going into gotcha mode, but they're always going to do that. I mean, that's sort of the nature of the beast. This time it's more exaggerated than in the past, but this is a totally different president.
Well, speaking of the presidency,